Defense team says it will appeal both guilty verdicts. So back with us this morning to react to the verdict and more, we have Michelle Thomas and Jess Lettingham. You all have spoken with us for weeks now in this trial. We finally have a result, at least when it comes to the verdict. I want to get your take on the verdict and then also the decision to keep him behind bars until sentencing. Jess, you start, and then Michelle.
So the verdict is exactly what I predicted, correct? I had a feeling that he was going to get guilty on the transportation to engage in prostitution and not guilty on everything else. So this is a great day for Diddy. Unfortunately, he's not out of the woods because it appears that the judge is kind of against him and thinks that he is a monster, if you will, because he said his behaviors are bad. So Diddy could still face some serious prison time if the judge takes upon himself justice a little bit more than he should.
But how much time do you think?
If I was to predict in a normal case, 3-4 years tops, and in federal you have to serve about 85% of your time that you're sentenced to. But he could face 20 years if the judge really wants to do it and instead have the 10 years sentencing and make it consecutively, which means 10 years, then 10 years, right, rather than concurrently and do 20 years.
At the same time. Michelle, how do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the jury found that the government failed to prove its burden beyond a reasonable doubt. Regarding the sex trafficking charges, there was a lot of evidence in terms of text messages from the women, about 800 messages saying that they love Diddy. And so was it consensual or was it coercion? The jury found that there must have been some level of consent there, so he was acquitted.
Well, reasonable doubt. I want to correct you on that. That doesn't mean that they thought that it was pure I love you and that they consented. It found that there was reasonable doubt in the prosecution's case that he coerced these women. So it doesn't mean that he's innocent of coercion. It means that they just don't think he's guilty. And you've always got to remember.
Yeah, but I have to be clear that that's exactly what I said. So there's no need for correction there. It's the fact that just because someone acquits someone doesn't mean that they didn't believe the women at all. Mm-hmm. It means that those text messages, the way that the women, that Cassie was complicit in helping to bring in some of the prostitutes and so forth and participate in the freak-offs, suggested to the jury that did the government prove it beyond a reasonable doubt? Yeah. No, they did not.
Were you surprised that he was made to stay behind bars yesterday?
You know, this judge sent a message that no one is above the law. And so he said that what he had seen enough to know that Diddy was still dangerous to the community. So the judge had to consider whether he was a flight risk, whether he could still be intimidating witnesses, intimidating the people who testified during the trial, and found that with all of his money, his fame, his influence, his power, that there was too much at stake and at risk, and Diddy had to remain. Now, at the same time, Diddy had a lot. They offered a $1 million bond. Certainly, the judge could have trusted Diddy, but remember, this judge saw weeks and weeks of graphic evidence of abuse, of violence, and he concluded that there was no way this person should be let free.
I have a question for both of you, because after all of this was over, we almost did wall-to-wall coverage, and you all participated in some of that later on in the afternoon. I got two questions, and really it's the same question from two people. What does this mean for Me Too and the Me Too movement? Because there are some people who are going, I saw him beat Cassie. I believe she was forced. So here's my question. Do you believe that when it came to the government's case, that there was maybe some overreach in trying to tie these allegations to the racketeering conspiracy charge, which convoluted everything and made the sex trafficking charge less palatable for the jury?
Well, okay, so I'm going to say that the Republicans, it's interesting seeing Republican commentary on this because a lot of them wanted Diddy guilty. However, I think the Republican Party is a huge reason why Me Too movement is dead. I'm a personal believer that Me Too overreached. The prosecution overreached here. And so the fact that we're seeing kind of some pushback, yes, you may be a victim, but that doesn't mean that you don't have the right to stand up and leave. And that is why we saw such remarks such as Bill Maher, and he is sticking by his remarks that Cassie should have left, not have consented.
Well, this was outside of Republican talking points.
Yeah, this had nothing to do with politics.
Yeah, people who believe that maybe the prosecution's case would have been stronger had they gone in without the racketeering conspiracy. Maybe he could have been found guilty on sex trafficking.
Yeah, so what happened is this was really about the domestic violence, the abuse, the video we saw at the Intercontinental Hotel where Diddy was dragging Cassie down the hallway. And so the statute of limitations expired to be able to pursue state charges such as the abuse and, assault, battery, and domestic violence charges. So I do think that the government had an interest in tying all of that domestic violence together and trying to penalize Diddy under this larger umbrella because that's what was available in terms of federal charges at this time.
Got it. So what now? I mean, he has close to 70 civil lawsuits that are there. I mean, do you think that yesterday's verdict will have any involvement or impact on those?
Well, remember,
finally?
the burden of proof is much lower in the civil context. So we're talking about preponderance of the evidence in the civil monetary where they're seeking money from Diddy versus beyond a reasonable doubt. So it is possible that he could still be found liable in a civil context and have to pay millions and millions of dollars to some of the alleged victims as a result of his conduct.
Right. Well, Jess, Michelle, I wish we had more time. There's so much, but you all did a wonderful job today and all of the days that you joined us here.